Hi.
Hi.
I realized when I was driving here that I'm an idiot.
Just now?
I forgot to unload these tires. So I'm gonna put them in there if I can.
But wait, if the tires are here, what are you driving on?
These aren't gonna fit this thing. These are for a Subaru my buddy bought.
Okay.
And I forgot to unload them. But I thought, hey, we can see how much room there is. We've got 4 seats, and we've got room for 4 tires behind it. And there's some room there, and there's some room there.
Here they are, 2 of the most sought-after 3-row SUVs on the market today. And up on your split screen, it's the Hyundai Palisade Urban, priced at $54,700 Canadian. And we'll also be seeing from the Palisade Ultimate Calligraphy, that's the top dog version, shown here at $58,300, and on offer with 7 seats in the Calligraphy and 7 or 8 seat options in the Urban. There's also the Mazda CX-90 debuting this year for the very first time and priced from $45,900 with standard mild hybrid turbo straight 6 power. You can also order a high output version of that engine, or a plug-in hybrid engine for 3 times more engine choices than the Palisade. We'll be diving into which of these makes the best use of your gas dollars later in the video, and I'll bet you'll find the differences to be pretty compelling when you see them in dollars and cents. That's coming up. So let's meet these machines. Full pricing up on your screen, but the CX-90 comes in from $8,800 less than the Palisade, even if the CX-90's top line model, the Signature, is $63,300, or about $5,000 more when comparing fully loaded trim grades. So while the Palisade's much shorter trim grade list and narrower span of pricing options is entirely overlapped by the CX-90 lineup, the point for shoppers is that between these two, there's something for just about every whim in this price range. But which is wisest for your dollars? We'll dig into that with a ton of calculations soon, but first let's take a peek under the hood and size these machines up. The Palisade runs a singular engine option, a 3.8-liter V6 with 291 horsepower and 262 pounds of torque. No turbo, no hybrid assist. This is the old-school engine in this comparison. The CX-90's standard engine is a new 3.3-liter straight-6 turbo with mild hybrid for 280 horsepower. That falls 9 shy of the Palisade, but it does have 70 pounds more torque, so it can be forgiven. That is a considerable advantage. You can order a tuned-up version of the straight-6 turbo hybrid with 340 horsepower on 93-octane gas, or 319 horsepower on regular 87-octane. It's the driver's choice, and this engine is set up from the factory to run with whatever octane level you like. Regardless of the fuel grade, it's the better part of 370 pounds of torque from this engine. And there's also a plug-in hybrid version if you like, that's not offered in the Palisade. A mystery unfolds when we dig into the size, passenger space, and cargo specs of this pair, and it starts outside. Full specs on your screen, but key takeaways are that the CX-90's wheelbase is 220mm or 8.6 inches longer than the Palisade's, an advantage of 7.5%. On overall length, the Mazda takes the win by a smaller advantage. It's 125mm or about 5 inches longer than the Palisade overall, an advantage of 2.5% on overall length for the Mazda. So while the Mazda's wheels are much further pushed to the corners of the car, the overall length grows just a bit, giving it what should prove to be a more stable stance. But on width, height, and ground clearance, this pair are separated by less than half an inch. But how does that all stack up when it comes to interior space, cargo volume, and passenger room? So as I start listing off the spaciousness specs, remember that while the CX-90 is a little longer than the Palisade, the two are virtually tied in all other measurements. On front headroom, the Palisade beats the CX-90 by 1.1 inches or 30mm. That's a 1.1% advantage in front seat headroom for the Hyundai. In the second row, the Palisade makes it a 44mm or 1.7 inch advantage for headroom, beating the CX-90 on second row headroom by 1.7%. Third row headroom goes to the Palisade as well, beating the CX-90 by 24mm, or an inch. That's a 1% advantage, making the Palisade this comparison's headroom champ. But does that make it the best for your biggest passengers? On front legroom, the CX-90 squeezes out a very slim win by a quarter inch or so. You could virtually call this a tie. But the Palisade offers a big second row legroom advantage versus the Mazda by some 3 inches or 77mm. That's nearly 8% more second row legroom in the Palisade. In the third row, you'll find an inch or about 3.2% more legroom in the Palisade than you will in the CX-90. Your wide-shouldered passengers will be happiest in the Palisade too, with considerable advantages in shoulder room for all seating rows. So if you'll frequently be using all 3 seating rows, and often transporting adult-sized passengers, you'll find the Palisade to be the roomiest choice pretty easily. I'll put full cargo capacity metrics up on your screen, but to summarize, you'll find 16.5% more in the Palisade behind the first row seats, 14.5% more behind the second row seats, and 20% more cargo capacity behind the third row seats in the Palisade. So despite being shorter overall than the CX-90 and virtually tied in terms of width and height, the Palisade remains the roomiest machine in this comparison in virtually all measurements. And if that's useful for you to know, please leave me a like if you're watching on YouTube. So while the Palisade seems to make better use of its platform to maximize space on board, maybe the Mazda's platform was designed with different intentions in mind.
One thing to point out around me in the driving environment here is the way they've logically separated the controls into various segments. So if you look up here, we have this one row, and this is all of our navigation and radio stuff. Everything we need right here. Climate control is on this row, so anything to do with our climate control is in this segment of controls right here. This all has to do with driving the vehicle. So here's how we shift gears: push button, drive, neutral, reverse, back to park. Auto hold if we want it. Our drive mode and off-road selector here. We've got drive modes on this side. And if we press that, we've got terrain modes here. And then over a bit more to the right, we've got our parking assist, parking camera assist, auto stop, and downhill assist control there. And finally, our supplemental controls for heated and chilled seats and our heated steering wheel. So lots of high-tech features in here, but also everything very approachable because it's very logically laid out around you. So look at the storage provisions here. Love the sort of curved shape to this opening here. We push that. We've got our center storage bin. These cup holders are the type that spin this way and this way. So if we have a beverage, we can put that in there. And now we've got a cup holder, mind you, not a perfect fit, maybe close enough. USB charging port there. And then when we come back here, we've got the center console with a removable bin, additional charging ports down here. And that is not quite elbows deep, but pretty close.
The biggest non-numerical difference between these machines shows up on the road test. There are pros and cons to the way each of them drives, and understanding these can help you make a better purchase decision. On ride quality in the beaten-up back roads where I commonly test cars in Northern Ontario, the win has to go to the Palisade, which does an above-average job soaking up the bumps, and is what I'd call one of the best riding mainstream SUVs I've tested in conditions like these. The Palisade's rough road ride is a real asset. These same surfaces make the Mazda feel busier and a little choppier, still within limits but easily reminding you that the CX-90 has more sporting intentions. It could ride rougher given the handling, but if all-out backroads comfort is your priority, the Palisade takes it. There's little separating the pair on lighting system performance. Both are running high-end LED lights that help earn top safety scores. The output of the Mazda system seems a little sharper and cleaner looking, but I think the Palisade actually gives me a touch more peripheral lighting into tree lines and culverts. In any case, if either of these machines will be your first new car in many years, and maybe you're coming here from something with an outdated lighting system, I think you'll be delighted on your first nighttime drive, because both of these machines turn in what I'd call a very confidence-inspiring lighting system performance for the dollar. And I noted no issues with either after over 1,000 kilometers of driving in the dark. Both machines have smart all-wheel drive systems, but I'd say the Mazda does the better job of keeping the ride tidy and stable on split traction surfaces. And while neither of these machines will let you down in the snow with a proper set of tires, the rear-biased setup of the CX-90's all-wheel drive system is that bit more engaging with generous on-demand torque delivered to the rear wheels for a livelier low-traction handling feel that enthusiasts will like. Add in the more energizing feel to the Mazda's steering and the strong smooth surge of hybrid pulling power at the tips of your toes, and I think it's the powertrain and handling where you're finding your most money's worth in the Mazda. The CX-90 is by far the more engaging machine to drive. All of its engines are hybrid boosted, 2 of the 3 are also turbocharged. Throttle response, even at very low revs and with light pedal inputs, blow the Palisade out of the water. Not only does the Palisade's bigger engine make less power overall than the Mazda's, it's also louder since it needs a lot more revs to get up and moving quickly. So when it comes to throttle response, the Mazda just does more with much less, and does it more quickly. Low rev torque is impressive thanks to the hybrid electric motor. And in the CX-90, you'll be doing 0 to 60 at least roughly a second quicker than in the Palisade too, with the CX-90's plug-in hybrid version being the quickest. Of course, if you prefer a more comfortable and laid-back drive that's a bit less engaging and a bit more smooth and relaxing, the Palisade will do you just fine. But if you're after maximum bang for your fuel buck, there is only one option here. You probably know what it is already, but what are the differences when it comes down to dollars and cents? So the Palisade's 291 horsepower engine runs on 87 octane gas, and so does the 280 horsepower version of the hybrid turbo 6 in the Mazda. That's both base engines here making rated horsepower on regular grade fuel. Run that same 87 octane gas through the high output version of the Mazda straight 6 turbo hybrid, and it's 319 horsepower, though if you like, running 93 octane boosts that up to 340, and regardless of the fuel grade, you're getting 369 pounds of torque. Premium gas is recommended for the plug-in hybrid engine if you're going in that direction. Alright, so the dollars and cents. To drive 100 kilometers on average in the Palisade needs 11.1 liters of gas. That's about 21 miles per gallon if you like. Assuming you're paying $1.50 a liter, it'll cost you $16.65 to drive 100 kilometers, and assuming that you drive 25,000 kilometers per year, then that's a monthly gas bill of $350 and an annual gas bill of $4,160 for the Palisade. In the CX-90, the standard 280 horsepower engine, and its big torque advantage versus the Palisade, needs 9.3 liters of gas to drive that same 100 kilometers. That's about 25 miles per gallon. Using my earlier math, that's $14 to drive 100 kilometers, a monthly gas bill of $290, and an annual gas bill of $3,490. So comparing base engine to base engine, that's $60 a month less into the tank of the CX-90, and a savings of more than $700 per year. Even if you run the high-power version of this engine, which makes 319 horsepower on regular grade gas, your annual fuel bill goes up by just $70. That's less than a $6 per month difference for the extra nearly 40 horsepower. Or put simply, you get 40% more horsepower for just 2% more of your gas dollars, and you'd still be saving hundreds of dollars a year on gas versus the Palisade. Both machines can tow 5,000 pounds if you're wondering. The CX-90's plug-in hybrid engine was my favorite thing about it, and for a lot more detail about that model, and the engine powering it, be sure to check out my full road test report, which is linked in the description below if you're watching on YouTube. And if that's the case, be sure to click those like and subscribe buttons while you're down there if you don't want to miss more videos like this one. So which one of these machines would I buy with my own dollars? This is the part of the video where I put the numbers aside and give you a more personal take on these two, and as a driving enthusiast who loves a good sports car, I've got to tell you this is hardly even fair. In this pricing universe, I'd be going Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid, and I would miss the Palisade's more comfortable backroads drive, more spacious rear seating row, and maybe especially those turn signal camera mirrors. And full disclosure, I'm not an SUV shopper with a big family and a lot of stuff to haul around, so my priority is not maximum space for the buck, though yours might be. To me, in this comparison, it comes down to the gas dollars, and to put it simply, the CX-90 uses less of mine, puts a bigger smile on my face, has an engine that sounds and feels superior to the Palisades, let alone outperforming it, and I'm saving at least $700 a year on gas, plus it's got that high-torque rear-biased all-wheel drive setup that I love in the snow, ditto the direct spray jet wipers. So if you're a driving enthusiast after an SUV in this pricing universe, I would tell you the CX-90 is a really good one, and if you're more into space and size for a flexible family hauler you can grow into, then so is the Palisade. It's always nice to have choices, and if you understand these two a little better from watching this video, be sure to consider subscribing to my channel if you're watching on YouTube so you don't miss any more videos like it.
Thank you for watching. I'm Justin Pritchard, and until next time, take care and drive safe.